Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. Today, we're talking with an entrepreneur and growth architect with an incredible story. First of all, she wrote a letter to the President of the United States asking him to help her build her business back after someone stole her ideas. And guess what? He answered. Second, after building the business in a different direction, she ended up selling that business to Bill Gates in a multi-million-dollar deal. Let's find out how all this happened. I'm Tanya Eberhardt, founder of BrandFace. We help business stars differentiate themselves, and we do that through personal branding.
And I'm Michael Carr. I'm the COO of BrandFace. I was actually a client of the company before I became a partner, and we're the only comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe. We do the Be Bold podcast to try to help people take the fear out of putting themselves out there. So we like to get fantastic clients that are going to tell us how they fearlessly and boldly built businesses and brands. And we have a fantastic guest for you here today.
Her name is Beate Chelette, and she's, as we said earlier, a growth architect, which I love that name, and founder of the Women's Code. A first-generation immigrant, Beate found herself $135,000 in debt as a single parent. So she bootstrapped her passion for photography into a highly successful global business and eventually sold it to Bill Gates. She's among the top 100 global thought leaders by People Hum and one of the 50 must-follow women entrepreneurs by HuffPost. She helps organizations to grow through her 5-star success blueprint, which we'll learn about today. Clients call Beate for leadership, professional development, team building, executive coaching, and workplace unification. So, Beate, welcome to Be Bold Branding.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you, Michael, for having me. I can't wait to get bold with the both of you.
I love it.
You've already gotten bold without us, and that's what we want to know. How did you do it?
What a great thing here. We're going to dig into this and have a lot of fun with it.
Yes, let's dive right in. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be here.
All right. Well, let's just jump right in. Tell us about the photography business that you started when you came to the United States, and what was the inspiration behind that business?
So one of the things that people don't know when they hear about a business owner who sold her business to Bill Gates, no less, is that my only degree is a photography degree. So I went to photography school in Munich, Germany, and I am a trained photographer. So for me, the business behind the art was just so easy that I decided that to be a creative, while I understand the creative mind and I am a creative, but I'm just better at the business behind of it. And so I fell into the business side of things. So first I was a photo editor at Elle magazine in Germany. And then I came to the United States, started working for a hair and makeup agency, then became their a photographer representation business. So, started a startup portion of what they were doing, and then got laid off and had to figure out how to run a business by myself. And that's when I started a photographer representation and a still photography production business. And that's how I, utilize the creativity and photography to build my life and business and fortune.
Tell us a little bit about the story that led to you writing a letter to the President of the United States.
Yes, it's actually really, if you think about it, pure desperation. At this point, I am $135,000 in debt. I'm a single mom. I'm an immigrant. I'm in a country not my own. I'm going through a horrible divorce, and I'm embattled in a bitter lawsuit against a former employee who got a little bit too close to my key vendor, and they came up with this idea how to run my business just without me. And just as I had thought I was going to recover and had $500,000 of production volume on the books, September 11th comes, and 20 years ago, I lost literally everything else in a single day. And so here I am completely wiped out and broke and don't know what to do. And I had just gone to Germany, and my dad had a stroke, but my dad didn't have a stroke. My dad had pancreatic cancer. And so he died within 6 weeks. And so I have this pile of, of just stuff that sits on top of me. And I am so desperate. And my former mother-in-law just kept saying, you need to write the president of the United States. And I'm like, who in the world writes the president of the United States? I mean, what outlandish, ridiculous idea is it? She just would not stop talking about it. She's like, he's your president. That's what the president is for. It's a president of the people. You got to write the letter. At least you got to try it. And at long last, Tanya, I finally said, fine. I'm just going to write that letter. Okay. And then I don't have to hear about it anymore. So I wrote the letter and I forgot completely about it because writes a letter to the president of the United States.
Hey,
well,
I used to write letters to Santa Claus. I mean,
what's the difference? Exactly.
I would probably have a better chance of getting a response, right?
That's until you get the response and you get a letter from the
Exactly.
White House. And then you go, what? I got a letter from the White House. And so this letter really was the key to how my luck and my fortune and my everything changed, because while the letter said the president is delighted to hear from you, I am, in all honesty, pretty sure that he never read the letter. But what happened is that it was forwarded to the Small Business Administration here in Los Angeles. And because it was a letter from the White House, it went to the deputy chief director, not some underling or some, entry level loan, whatever person, who are all wonderful, but it went to the deputy chief director. So when I walked in and I had written my business plan, and I'm sure that's music in both of your ears,
Absolutely.
I did all the work that I had to do. I wrote the business plan. I had everything prepared. So when the call came and the letter came, I was ready. And so when I walked into the Small Business Administration and met the deputy chief director, and he said to me, I'll put in what you put in, I knew it was going to be okay.
Yeah. How about
Because I
that?
was ready. And so that's how the story changed. And then they helped me find a bank that restructured my debt, which was $135,000 in a 10-year structured note. And that brought me to break even in 3 months because it freed up my line of credit. That's how close it was. 3 months between bankruptcy and break even. 3 months.
Wow.
And then 18 months later, I'm the world leader in celebrity at home stories. And we provided images, brand leading images for the real estate industry. So Coldwell Banker's leading image was from us. We did a lot of the paint brochures, the magazines, the decorating magazines, the how-to magazines and books in the entire do-it-yourself home improvement category. And that attracted the attention of a Bill Gates company. And they wanted to know how I did it. And like any decent woman, I told them if they want to know how I do it, they have to pay for it.
I love it.
There you go. Bravo.
I love it.
Love it. I love it too.
Oh, that is so fantastic. And we're going to, and I want to, you said something right before we came on right here that I want to come back to in a minute. We may not do it right now, but something also that you can tell your business acumen is spot on. So we'll come back to that. What was your biggest takeaway from that I think you've already said it. What would you quantify as your biggest takeaway from that story?
I think that the biggest thing that is important to take away or share or know is that opportunities show up as challenges. And so if I look back, right, and I say, well, let's look at what really happened. Let's dissect it. So I sold a company to the richest man in the world, himself, not Microsoft, but himself. And the lawsuit prepared me for the due diligence because they combed through everything, including my divorce agreement. And at that time, I already had been divorced for many years. They looked at all my books. They looked at everything, but I had learned my lesson in the run before. And I had set it up so it was an equity-based business. and my books were as clean as they could be. And when they walked away from the due diligence, they said to me, it couldn't happen to a better person. And so to me, that was a lot of the vindication. But I didn't know this when I was going through all these hardships and the challenges, that this was all about preparing me for running a global company. We were operating in 79 countries in the world,
Wow.
through licensing agreements. Well, I learned that at Elle magazine because I bought these stories. So when I became the vendor, I knew exactly what to do because I was on the other side. And because I had done the photography business, I knew how to talk to photographers, and I knew what a high quality image was. And because I ran a production business, I knew how to produce things and how to map things out. So all these things that I thought were just these insurmountable challenges, and I couldn't believe why God, Spirit, the universe just kept bombarding me with this, ended up being the learning pieces, the stepping stones, the
everything,
modules of my life.
Yes.
everything
I
you needed.
love that.
I do too.
Yeah.
And it's that I think, as personal, branders, we deal with people's stories, and it's not just about their professional story. What did you go to school for and how many years have you had in this profession? It's about who you are as a human being.
Mhm.
And very much who we are as human beings is how we deal with adversity, how we pull ourselves up, and how we continue, and how we don't second guess. We just do what we need to do.
Mhm.
And I love that story about you, Beate, because it's so strong. And I know that has a lot to do with your personal brand too, is that strength. So tell us a little bit about how you feel your personal brand has really helped you in the business world.
Yes. And I think important to say is that you also have to be clear about that your personal brand goes through phases and adjustments. Because when I was in my 30s and I'm this, young, good looking, well put together new thing, right? And I was there, and I got attention and opportunities in a different way, because simply by showing up, people like, what is this woman doing here? And so, I use that as part of my brand, coupled with my business acumen, to really make people like pay attention, like, oh, she knows her stuff, right? So I had a different brand. And then once I turned 50, and I recognized that I can't do the oversized sweater with a glass of Cabernet in the kitchen, single mom thing anymore, because now my daughter is grown. She's actually getting married. So this brand doesn't work. So I looked at what is a brand with women over 50 that really works. And I ended up at Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I'm looking, it's like, what did she do that made her brand be timeless? And, and it kind of went on until the day she passed away. And what she did is she went the classy, elegant, no BS, a balanced kind of route, where she says, I'm not engaging in everything. I'm very deliberate where I'm engaging. I know where I'm going to put my energy. I understand people have different opinions. It's going to be my job to balance this out. And so I took this idea as a brand and said, in order for me to survive, because I bet you see this all the time, women over 50 trying to be still the young, hot thing. And it's painful. It's painful. It's painful. It's like, do not wear the short skirts. I leave this up to my daughter. Make sure your brand is appropriate for what your messaging is. I can't try to be the cougar. I looked at it and I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. So what else is there? And so the bold brand that now I have chosen is the, originally from Germany, no BS. I don't sell the dream. I sell the tools. You want the shortcuts, you want the truth, you want to get there fast, you come here. You want to do the fancy car, vacation, dream thing, whatever. That's not me.
Helicopter and all.
There you go. How
We
did you
love
know?
you.
How did you know
Love
the
you.
helicopter was in that?
You know, we were just having a discussion about this the other day. At the ripe age of, I think, maybe 21 or 22, I entered the radio world. And it was in the sales side of radio. So you were calling on established business people, mostly men back then. And that radio was known for hiring a bunch of skirts. You know, that's what they called us, right? Just hiring skirts. Because they knew that the men would let us in the office and maybe, just maybe, we'd be able to sell them something. Well, that made me very angry. So I thought, you know, the last thing I'm ever going to be considered is a skirt in this business. I have literally 15 to 20 seconds to prove to somebody the moment I walk through the door that I know what I'm talking about, right? And if I don't, then hey, don't insult my intelligence. I'm out of here. But I was able to do that because that whole perception made me angry. So even people in their youth, they have those kinds of challenges. You know, as we get older, it's much easier to like
Different challenge.
it is, and our brand should always precede us, right? So no matter your age, you know, you need to know exactly how you want to be perceived, and you have to develop that story before you put it out there to the world. Otherwise, you're just kind of, you know, scattered, right?
I think that that's really a very, very powerful point. And the knowledge that when that story changes, and your ability, flexibility, adaptability to really recognize that there's a change in the story now, in the branding story, is really critical. I give you an example of something I did to get the meetings. And when I used to do these conferences, and I'm trying to break into the stock photography business, and there are all these, you know, men, and they're traveling for business to these conferences. Now, when men travel to conferences, they're away from their families, they don't have to be whatever, and they all go to the bar and they always drink, right? And so I looked at this, and I looked at the bar, I'm going like, why are there no women at the bar? Well, because men are drinking. When they're drinking, it gets kind of sometimes a little dicey. So I figured, how am I going to use that to my advantage? So I came up with my Cinderella rule for women in business. And it goes like this: always dress up for the ball at the bar, 3-drink maximum, in bed before midnight, and you walk to your room alone.
There
And
you
then,
go.
and then you're completely out of trouble. And what happened is that men don't have a 3-drink maximum. And so they tell you things, and then in the morning, they're kind of like a little, I'm not really remembering what I said. And so they would come up and they said, well, a little embarrassed, you know, it's like, so, you know, really great fun talking to you last night. And I said, yeah. And then they kind of probe on whether or not you're going to have loose lips. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And they knew that I knew how men operate, that what is being said is not being repeated. That's what got me the trust to get me to the meeting, where I even had the opportunity to dazzle with my brilliance. Now, did I use what I had? Yeah, because that was part of my brand, as, you know, sort of the hot little thing on the blog that did, you know, all these cutting edge celebrity homes, you know, so it had to have a little bit of a glamour and a little bit of something around that, right? But I didn't misuse that because I was very clear what I was in it for. My goal was to get to the meeting so I could make the money.
Yes. And we call
So
that
true.
being authentic. And I love it. Like, for all the women that will watch this, it's no doubt why you are an inspirational speaker in the business women's world. It's very important. I love the rules, like, because that is sometimes, many times, missing with people in business like that. I've had the fortune, Tanya's actually met her before, I've had the fortune of seeing powerful, well put together women that are powerful in men's spaces, because they don't have to be men's spaces. It just happens that men are in that space. It doesn't mean that they're excluding women from that space. That space can be filled with women, but they need to be filled with women like yourself, like Tanya, like so many of our BrandFace clients that are very professional. They can be in the midst of men in men's business. But go ahead and set those rules up, like you said. I love it, because then you're living by a principle, and you're also living authentic And there's nothing wrong with, yes, having a nice outfit on, and yes, all the guys drinking at the bar away from home like wanna, but that's not, no, that ain't happening. This is what's happening.
Right.
And then you cut through that, you cut through being called a skirt when you're selling something, right? Because you've got so much to offer and you've been clear about that up front. It's really strong. So I think that the really strong takeaway, like you said, is that authenticity that is very important when you're building your brand. And yes, it can change over time because we change over time. I mean, we don't have a book.
Well, we get more wise over time.
Our old book cover has me with no beard, right?
Here we go.
But when we first wrote that book, I did not have a beard.
Look at that guy. Who is that
guy? So, new photo shoot coming, by the way. We've just been busy. But, I've just sported this beard now for 5 or 6 years, and that's become who I am, and I'm comfortable in it. I really like it. So from a man's standpoint, I can also back what you're saying. It changes over time. The core values don't change. At all your meetings, that still following those same rules, and you're still living that same person, and you're still getting to that meeting where you can dazzle them with your brilliance. But yeah, certain elements
more boldly
of that,
though, more boldly, I bet.
You're absolutely right, Tanya. I think that what happens is that when you get to when something comes around for the first time, like when your heart is broken for the first time, you think the world's coming to an end. When it's happened to you for the 10th time, you go like, well, another frog. But you just don't get to that end of the world scenario, hopefully, right? Because you have the experience. And so in business and in branding, it's the exact same thing. It's a question, does this work? Does this work? And then there comes the day where it doesn't work anymore because either the environment has changed or look at what's happened in the pandemic and how COVID has changed so much of the branding, which business clothes, which high heels, which whatever. I mean, it completely shifted and forced us into thinking, how do I want to show up now? What's changed in my brand now? And so for us, for the last year, as we really embraced the growth architect, and we said, what is it that makes us now different than everyone else? And it's really the strategic component of the no bullshit. It's like, I don't have time for that. If you just want to talk about it and hold hands, that's great. You need a coach. But if you need someone who actually maps out the blueprint, the strategy, and tells you what the steps are based up on what you know and what you are and who you are, because we listen, I bet it's the same thing with you. You listen to it so often that you go, that's not congruent with who you are. Sorry. Not sorry, but
no, it makes it easier to not bring people into your business, right? Because, most people think, if somebody schedules a call with you and they want to learn more about your business, then you're automatically going to let them into the fold. Not so here. Maybe 10 years ago was a lot closer to the truth. But now I realize we only want our people in here, right?
And those people are just as we're committed. We're 100% committed to helping. You're 100% committed.
But our people means you need to be committed to your own self. You need to be committed to standing out, to being different. Otherwise, why do you come here?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I have a question for you, actually. So I'm going to flip it on you for a second here.
All right.
So one of the things that I see a lot, and I want to know if that happens with you as well, is that people say they want to change, and then when they see the change, they freak out.
It does happen. Yeah. It definitely does happen. I won't say a lot, but it happens. And I think for our clients, they go through kind of a metamorphosis. They're really surprised. And I know, Michael could probably speak to watching the brand messaging reveals as we go through them, meaning we help to write their story. And what do they say?
That's me. What? I want to do business with that person. Like I would be friends with that person. And we're like, that person's you.
They don't realize. They don't really realize
that that's who they are because nobody's really shown them. Yeah. I find that it's, to answer your question from my vantage point, we have a lot of people that say they want to do that. I believe them because it's sort of the way our process works when we take them on as a client. But then we watch them go through this, like she said, a metamorphosis, and they sort of grow into it in steps. Some of them don't. Some of them go directly to it. They're as bold as we tell them to be, right? We're like, trust us, be bold, right? And some of them have to just take baby steps for a minute, and then they like all of a sudden they take off and they're bold, right? So we see this different, like people moving at their personalities, own personal, like pace, if you will. But the one thing that I try to get across to them as quick as I can is that the one thing that I would change about all of my business endeavors is I would have been bolder sooner. I had no reason not to be bold. I'm the same person now that I was back then. Yes, I've got more experience just like you do and Tanya does. And we go through these challenges and we learn we can survive these battles. And now we know what these battles look like. So calm down, everything's fine. You do have to go through those things, obviously, and you're better when you're on the other side of those things.
Yeah.
But I would have been much bolder, much sooner. I would have ran to those challenges that you talked about that change you and develop you, rather than doing a whole lot to try to avoid them. I really would.
Yes, I'm with you on that. I think that when at first we just try to fit in, and then we are looking at other people who are who we want to be, only to arrive there and go, that doesn't really gel with me at all. And then you wake up one day and you realize that you wasted a lot of time trying to be like other people. And then that's really when you need an external, outside consultant, strategist, coach who listens to you and who has this understanding to say, wait, what did you just say? I give you a great example. So I facilitated the Greater Los Angeles Realtor Association's strategic planning meeting. And so they were looking for a title for a video piece to feature on their website. And so I'm walking by at the very moment, and the one guy sits there and he says, I don't know what title I can come up with for this, but really, everybody always comes to me and says, well, how do I tell my client? And I said, there's your title.
There's your title.
There's your title. How do I tell my client how to?
Whatever. Yeah.
Whatever other thing that is. And then there's this moment of magic, and they said it, but they didn't hear it because they're not trained to hear what we hear, right? As consultants in the space. And then when I said, well, that's the title. And then when they presented it to the whole group, everyone was like, oh my gosh, that's so powerful.
And you're thinking, this is another day at the office, right?
just another day.
I'll share one other thing with you before we get into some of our final questions. But when people have interest in our company and want us to help them build their personal brand, they always say, most of them say, do you have anybody you've branded in my area? Can I see some of the brands you've created? And if pushed to do so, I will share some of those brands with them. But I am very clear with them. I will show you these, but I don't want to. And let me tell you why. Because I can show you 10 different brands. You are very likely to hate 8 of them. You know why you'll hate 8 of them? Because they're not yours.
Yeah.
They're not yours. This is not about who you truly are and who you want to be. You might see a beautiful image of a mountains behind one person and see this gorgeous $3,000 suit somebody's wearing, and you want to have that image, but that may not be you. It may be you, but it may not be you. And so you have to look at each individual very carefully and don't get sidetracked. Otherwise, why are you coming here? You come to BrandFace to be different. Now you're telling me you want to see what everybody else has done,
want to be the same.
Right? So we're very bold about that too. And that comes with age and wisdom as well.
Sure.
So I can so relate to a lot of these
because you're not proving anything anymore. And so that's why, in the marketing, it's all about, well, what end result do you want to have? And I worked with a fantastic woman in the real estate space, and she is very logical and very, like she can't even understand why people are so emotional about things like buying a house. She goes like, well, it's a transaction, right? And so And she struggled a little bit with that because she felt that, if everybody else is fuzzy and crying and, in my house, my home, my whatever, and here she is, and she goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, done. And so what we did, to your point, we cut all of that emotion out because that's not her. And we said, if you want someone who can maximize the value of the transaction in a systematical, logical, concise, cutting edge kind of a way, you come to her.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly the thing that she's been struggling with becomes her greatest asset.
Yeah.
Because I
Greatest
said,
strength.
if I'm looking at an investment property, I don't need no emotion about that.
Right.
If I'm looking at an investment property, I want somebody who's going to maximize the transaction and the value of the transaction and is able to explain it to me. And so we build a whole system for her around how she's going to take them through to say, well, in step number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, this is how I manage the transaction from the maximization, the evaluation, the whatever piece. And so to your point is, yeah, exactly. Like when somebody comes and says, can you show me what you've done? And then you can say, well, let me tell you how happy the people are with their bold
Exactly.
branding.
Exactly. Right. That's exactly what we've done.
Yes.
So, and that's the only way you can do it and be authentic about it, because just like someone's business strategy, one person's business strategy is very likely not anything like the next person's business strategy. They have different goals in mind. They have different expertise and experience.
And I'd like to, I told you I'd come back to it. So I'd like to come back now because I think it's the perfect segue to something you said right before we went on air about having to shift sometimes the thought process of what you thought it ought to be and what it actually is. And so if you want to just speak on that, but as it pertains to people building their brand or in how you've built a brand in the future or how that brand has changed, because I think that sometimes people take that first thought process. I know in business, I can give several examples of when I did it, and you hold on to this non-working thing longer than you should instead of shifting into where you really should be.
Oh, yes. And that happens pretty much all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was, I had the photographer representation business, and then I had the stock photography agency that was a result of being a representative. And the adaptability, the shift is all about that. You have to remember that the journey is the reward, not the goal, because if you're too attached to your goal, you're going to miss all the opportunities. So in mindset work, and I do a lot of mindset work, and a lot of what I teach is around mindset, is that you have to remember that when you set the goal and you ask to achieve something, that you're creating the opportunity. But the opportunity doesn't show up as an opportunity. Opportunity shows up as a challenge. Mm-hmm. So literally earlier today, I was interviewed by on another podcast, and the gentleman who is the podcast host said to me, well, so I have this opportunity, and this client came and he said, I want you to design my entire website branding. And I told him, I'm going to stay true to my goals. I'm going to, I can't get to you until next year. And then the guy said, I'm going to pay you a bonus if you get it done earlier. And even though you're on the high end, I still want to hire you. And he says, but I stuck to my guns, right? That was the right thing to do. And I looked at him and I said, I'm going to flip this on the head. I said, so obviously you must have asked to grow your business. And he says, yes, I have. I said, so God, Spirit, the universe now gives you this great this opportunity, and even throws a bonus it if you figure out how to do it. I said, and your first reaction is to say no.
Right.
And he got real quiet. And then I said, what if the answer to that question was how?
Yeah.
How do I do that? Because if you want to grow, if you want to provide for your family, if you want to have a business that is not just built on you, but has an equity part of it that runs even when you're not there. I said, you must have asked for all of this. He says, I did. I said, well, here it is. And you say no.
Right. And you should be saying how.
Yeah.
Right.
You should be saying how. And so talking about the shift, this is the shift that I talk about, is that when the opportunity comes in disguised as a challenge, it's okay if you say no quietly at first, but make sure you have the time to reflect and go, what's really going on here? What's the truth here? Is this maybe an opportunity to get me where I want to go? And then step into it.
Yes. Yes.
We have those discussions all the
We
time.
really do.
Beate.
In fact, we have a
All the
plaque in
time.
the office here that says that every day we're presented these obstacles and seemingly impossible obstacles that are opportunities. And so I agree with you 100%. And I also agree that these battles, I call them battles that you go through, these challenges that you go through, every time the worst challenge you could think of in business hits you in the face, you need to take a deep breath and then go, how much better off am I going to be when I'm through this? Because that's exactly why it's been presented to you. And when you come out on that other side of that, no matter the bigger the challenge, the greater the blessing. If you stay forward to what you're supposed to be doing and open to, like you're talking about, realizing that, that you got to ask the right questions sometimes. Sometimes it needs to be, how do I do this, to the right people that can show you. And you have to be open to those. Because
otherwise you wouldn't have gotten the opportunity. I mean,
right.
in mindset work, it can't show up unless you are ready for it. Mm-hmm. So if it shows up, and I think this is probably for a lot of business owners, the number one challenge is to recognize the opportunity to see that you're now called to make an impact. And so that's why in my branding now, I say very boldly, and you guys are going to love this, that, it's all about supporting visionaries and leaders to make their impact, because I can provide the strategies and the blueprints. But it's not about me, because my stuff is a vehicle to help other people to achieve their goals. And when you come at it from the perspective of, well, that's the goal, right? And it's kind of a vague goal, right? I don't attach necessarily dollar amounts to my goals, because I believe that, like Princess Leia said to Han Solo, if money is all you want, money shall be all you get. I want a hell of a lot more than just money.
Love it.
I love that too.
I want the relationship and the intimacy and the connection and the
money will come.
And the money will come. Exactly. So I really focus on the more people I help to make their impact, the more money I'll have in the bank. I mean, it's just like,
it just sort of works that way. Yeah.
It just it works that way.
But the reward, it probably feels the same as it does for me. Like I've never felt better. I've never felt better about myself, no matter how big of a deposit I made. And I never felt worse about myself, no matter how much I lost in a deal. Like I just never have. It's just it's a money.
You're not identified by that.
I'm not identified by that. I'm identified by how many people are happy with the outcome. I'm identified by how many people are achieving the goals they want to achieve. And talk about changing your focus. That didn't come about from me naturally. She can tell you, she's been through a lot of I never wanted to be a broker of a firm, much less one growing into several states, until I started doing it. And then when I let that river, if you will, take me that way, I found out this is where I get my most joy, is helping real estate agents and entrepreneurs grow themselves into the things that are important to them and their families. That's where I flourish. So
how beautiful is that?
Yeah, it's a great way to live. It truly is.
And that's I think the joy when we were wedding dress shopping for my daughter yesterday, and my daughter had first said, don't worry, Mom, I'm gonna just mail order a dress for like $200. And I said to her, no, I said, I want that experience for myself, and I want that experience for you. That moment where you stand there and it's the dress and you have this realization, this is really kind of happening. And so that moment came.
That's part of the journey, Beate. And like you were saying, it's not just about that destination or where you land. It's about the journey to get there. And those memories she will never forget, nor regret.
Never,
right?
never. And it was this moment where I watched her and her whole face changed, as she's now turning into this beautiful woman. And I just went and I took her hand in my face and I kissed her. And it just was I mean, there's no amount of money in the world you can put to this, but this is why we do what we do, so that we can generate the wealth to have these experiences and then share them with other people. And that's, I think, what I hope your audience is taking away from this conversation is the money is a tool to have the richness and the deepness of the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then to share that, and that's what we are doing. We are sharing the richness of the experience with each other, because there's enough for everyone. And
absolutely, there is.
We want to help more people. That's why we're here on our time, unpaid, because we are here to help you, the listener, to take something away and to say, wow, maybe I can do that too. And then our job's done. Yep. Or just starts, depending.
Yes.
That's true. That's
yes.
very true. Very
well,
true.
That's a great segue. Let me ask you this, because we could stay on this forever with you.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just have her back.
Oh, I love that idea. Tell us about your 5-star success blueprint, and then how our audience can get in touch with you.
Yes. So the 5-star success blueprint was really born out of the idea that I, have worked with thousands of entrepreneurs, business owners. And the question is always the same. It's like, how do I grow, build, and scale my business? So here's how. You always start with the idea. And the idea is, what is it? Who am I? And who is my client? And why would they want to buy from me? So that's all the branding. That's the idea, putting it together. The second step is, once you know that, then and only then can you make the offer and determine on what you're selling. Because only once you know who you are and what your voice is and who they are and what they want, can you even create the offer. Then you move to the third step, which is the system, because how are you going to find clients? How are you going to service them? What are your operational procedures, your automation? How do you go and build that business with systems? Then you go to the fourth step, and that is, well, now I need a team. Well, who do I need on my team? Well, with the idea, with the offer, with a system, now you know exactly who you need to operate these other pieces. And that gets you to the fifth step, which is leadership, because then once you have people that work in the systems that create the offer, that share the idea, now you need to step into a leadership position and actually not be a business owner, but be a business leader. And so in this 5-star success blueprint, most business owners are falling somewhere within that, and have figured out some pieces of it, but maybe they missed a step or they didn't finish a step. And so with the systems, when somebody comes to me, I have an uncovery process. And so everyone who's on this call, if you heard something and you go, I must speak to this woman, go to uncoverysession.com. Make sure you put Tanya or Michael or boldface in the subject, so I know you're coming from this. I'll be happy to make 7 of these complimentary sessions that are valued at $500 available to your audience, and it'll take me like 30 to 45 minutes, and I'll know exactly what you're missing in your business and what your next step should be. And if you're not ready for that, and you first want to, with your bold branding in place, want to figure out who your ideal avatar, your customer avatar, your customer profile is, go to airtightavatar.com. I've created a whole guide. All you do is download it. You can watch some videos and check mark step by step who your best client is. And then you can build your offer based on that. It's one of my fundamental pieces of growth architecture, and I'll be happy to make it available for free to everyone.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love that. Thank you so much for that.
Yes.
We always say there's a certain thing that a lot of people have in common when their brand's not really dialed in, their marketing suffers. And we always say to them, how can you possibly even begin to market unless, first of all, you know exactly who it is you're trying to attract.
Exactly.
And what you have to offer to them that's different, and so on and so forth. So it aligns so perfectly with what we're all about to Beate. I can't tell you what a pleasure this has been. Will you come back sometime and share some more with us?
Oh, 100%, of course. We're just
Okay.
building the relationship.
Awesome.
We would love that so much, so much. So thank you very much for all your time today. I know everybody's going to get something wonderful out of it. I know I did. I
Yes.
know I did. All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the awesome work that you're doing.
You're welcome, and we are honored to have you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. So if you have questions about your brand or want to learn more about us, head to discussyourbrand.com and schedule a free session with our team. That is discussyourbrand.com. And we'll let Michael close us out today.
All right, folks. Well, you know what we're talking about is about prosperity. And when we say prosperity here, we don't just mean money. It's important, but it's not all of it. It's about the 360 of an abundant life that we wish for every one of you. We know here at BrandFace that prosperity favors the bold. So we say be bold, especially with your brand, especially in 2021. Thank you, Ms. Beate, and thank you, Ms. Tanya.
Thank you both. All right, guys, we'll see you next time on Be Bold Brand.